Hey everyone, my name's Ernest Shackleton. Hope you're well. I want to try and keep this as interactive as possible today. Don't just let me stand up here blabbering on. So if you have a question, just raise your hand and we'll get into it. If I've spoken to you before, I would have spoken to you probably about property. So just quick background of who I am. I own two companies, Lakeview Property Group and Lakeview Design and Build. One buys property assets, holds them, and one builds the assets and trades them. So trading, non-trading company. Probably mostly the A12 corridor, so Essex, Suffolk area. Suffolk's great for renting, Essex is good for capital. So if you want to talk about property, investing in it, whatever you like, I'm happy to talk about it later on. But the real reason I'm here is my main passion. But the reason I talked about property is because it's passive income. I'm able to spend up to 3 months of the year away from home through property. So that's why I'll quickly slip that in there. But yeah, my main passion is I'm an Arctic explorer in training. And the reason I'm here today is to make you aware of what I'm up to and talk about an expedition that I'm training for. So this is probably the only thing that I'll read, but there is only one major endeavour left in polar exploration, one last world first to be claimed, one significant place on the planet mankind has yet to reach, and that's the pole of inaccessibility. Defined as the centre of the Arctic Ocean, furthest point from land. It's of grave significance from a scientific point of view, but also at the same time it is actually a world first. So as you can imagine, this sort of story doesn't go unnoticed. I'll tell you a little bit about my backstory in Ice Warrior before we get into it. I've been doing it about 4-5 years now, constant training. I'm going backwards and forwards to a place called Svalbard, which is North Norway, to do the cold stuff. Constantly going backwards and forwards to Dartmoor, where we do like the core skill stuff. So that's where we'll do like the first aid training, the campcraft, the navigation, all that sort of stuff. So I'm constantly all over the place training, always getting better, and now I've been here for a little while. I'm actually starting to train the new people coming through, so that's really cool, really enjoying that. So that's a little bit about Ice Warrior, what it is. Let's talk a little bit about what I'm training for. So I'm training for an expedition next February 2020, end of February. We have to go at the coldest time to the pole of inaccessibility is the end destination. But along the route we're taking scientific data. The idea behind it is we're trying to find out why it's depleting so fast. I'm going to name drop. We work alongside people like NASA, these top scientists on climate change, and between our raw data and what they can see from the satellites, hopefully you can work out what's going on up there. We'll go into that a bit more, but basically the whole expedition is 80 days, roughly 800 miles, and it's split into 4 legs. At the moment, I'm doing one of those legs. If I can raise enough sponsorship, I can do more legs, but at the moment, I'm designated to 4 legs. It is across one of the most inhospitable environments on the planet. It's Mother Nature at her best and at her worst. You get to see some really beautiful places. You know, the scenery is absolutely pristine. The silence is deafening. It's absolutely fantastic. The crunch of the snow under your feet is almost deafening because you're so used to the silence and you're crunching on the snow, and it's invigorating. It's a really great place, but also very, very dangerous. You know, up to minus say 40, 50 we'll be probably experiencing. Polar bears, sea ice breaking underneath your feet. There's lots of things against us, but it's not about me. It's about this. So I'm happy with that because I've taken the limelight off me. It's about the expedition. So, yeah, crossing treacherous sea ice. Obviously, we start on land and then walk onto the sea ice. It's just sea ice the whole way there, and it is unstable. That's the reason we're going up there. Yes, there's lots of new ice up there. So you hear controversy in the news that there's lots of new ice. What's the problem? Well, the problem is it's the old ice that's disappearing, and it's the old ice that stays there through the summer, and that's becoming less and less. We're actually going to have a summer soon where there may be no ice, and then that's when we're in real trouble. So that's what we're doing up there. Pole of inaccessibility. I think I've just blurted on about this before getting to it. It's all for the betterment of mankind. It really is. It is to save the species, i.e. us. We may mess up this planet to a point where it's inhabitable, which would be really sad, obviously. But at the end of the day, the planet will live on. If we kill ourselves off, very morbid, I know, but the planet will just sort itself out. It's been through far worse in the past, and it will just carry on. So I want to make sure that we stay here. So without the poles, we're going to get pretty warm. It's our AC system for the world. So we really do need them, and we need to understand why they're disappearing so fast and try and do what we can up there. I said to you earlier that this is a scientific endeavour, and it really is. Some of the science partners we work with, said to you earlier, Met Office, NSIDC, NASA. We've got top scientists from all over the world. I mean, we've got scientists from the UK, USA, Russia, Norway, China. I mean, there's not many organisations where you can get them many countries working together, and they are generally all working together on this project. It's a fantastic project to be a part of. I'm just a small cog in it. I'm no scientist, trust me, I don't pretend to be one, but the very raw scientific data that we take up there, the depth of the sea ice, the temperature of the water, what kind of plastics are in the ice, on the ice. We watch how the ice forms. So when you get two flows flowing around and they collide with each other, one will go above, one will go below, and it's called ridging and rafting, and we get to sort of see how that forms and take all that raw basic data to these guys who work the magic, and hopefully with the stuff that we take them, they can work out what's going on up there and come up with some sort of game plan, really. Not only, does anyone recognise the guy before I crack on? Yeah, Shackleton. So 100 years ago, we know him for going south, spending a couple of years in the Antarctic, doing some courageous, amazing things down there of human endurance. Well, actually before that, he planned to do this. He planned to go to the pole of inaccessibility because a guy called Sir Hubert Wilkins wanted to fly over the Arctic, and he wanted to know the furthest point from land, because if it goes beak tong and he crashes, he wanted to know what's the furthest I've got to walk or help's got to come to me. So he defined it as this point in the middle of the Arctic Ocean. Sir Ernest Shackleton heard of this, knew it would be a world first and wanted to do it, but due to funding, didn't do that, ended up going south, and that's what we're known for. Well, we're actually trying to pick up as well on the back end of that. His granddaughter, Alexandra Shackleton, is actually one of our patrons, very nice lady. So it's kind of an unfulfilled ambition of himself, really. So lots to think about there. Here's the route. I said to you earlier, it's 800 miles. It's 800 miles. Get my pointer up. So we start over here. Oh, there's a pen. Technology, eh? Pointer. So we start over here in Resolute Bay. That's our base camp. So that's where the media will set up. We'll come on to that in a bit about the media, but the world's media will be sort of setting up there so we can relay messages back to them. Then we move on to Advanced Base Camp, which is over here, which is LF Ringes Islands, and that's where the sea meets the land, basically, and that's where leg 1 starts. Now, I don't know if you've seen any of these human planet, frozen planets programs. You'll see where the sea ice meets the land, you get the big boulder fields, okay? Really rough terrain, very hard to navigate. You're going to get the most amount of polar bear activity there. Sea ice is going to be the most unstable. And that's probably my favourite leg, to be honest. It just suits my personality more. That they're just going to have to try and do as much as they can to get to the other side, because if you work out the maths, it's average you've got to be 200 miles per leg. They're going to struggle to do that. They've just got to get through as much as they can, as fast as they can, and then leg 2 will pick up from leg 1. So how that works is leg 1 will do as much as they can, get to a point, they get airlifted out, next lot get airlifted in. Okay, so there's 28 of us in total. Jim McNeil, who we'll come on to in a bit, famous explorer, he's going to be doing the whole thing. So he'll have 17 members go, 7 new turn up, they'll do leg 2. Now leg 2, has its own difficulties. You've got the last of the boulder fields, and then it's a case of just trying to catch up then. You know, leg one have lost some miles, so we've got to try and catch up. But one of the cool things about it, actually, in the Arctic we say smooth because everything's cool, so you can say cool, you say smooth, it's kind of our thing. But they go for the magnetic North Pole, which is one of the 4 North Poles, and that's always moving. It's on a 12-hour elliptical loop, and always moving in a certain direction. Does about 60k a year in a certain direction, and that was been through it since 2002. So where it was in 2002 is completely different to where it is now. So when we go through it, we get to sort of reposition the world where it actually is. So that'd be pretty cool. They do their leg as far as they can. Team 3, again, have got to be good sprinters, just trying to go as fast as they can, but they obviously take as many samples and scientific data as much as they can. And leg 4, well, they've got to be a mixture of good runners and swimmers, because after 80 days, this ice is going to be thawing out. So there's going to be big leads, which is like big open parts of water. So luckily, we'll comment a bit later, but in the past, a big lead of water would mean you'd have to go around it. Or Jim McNeil, which we'll come on to later, he's invented an invention called the kajak, which is Inuit word for canoe. And basically, we drag pulks behind us. All our gear goes in a pulk, we drag behind us, and we do that nodding donkey syndrome. Well, he's designed it so that it's actually a canoe as well. So we come to a lead, we can get in our pulk and go across, and it just saves us days, because we've only got 80 days to do this. So if we could save time wherever, it would be times like that when there's big leads. So that's it for the leg, really. And obviously Team 4, when they get to the end, they get to the pole of inaccessibility, they'll be the first ones there, and you know, that's kind of what the world's media's jumped on, which is what brings me on to the media. Here's some of the people already covering our stories. In the past, Jim's attempted this twice. Back in 2003, he attempted it, didn't actually make it out of base camp because, long story cut short, he contracted something, necrophysiitis, not really sure, it's some sort of disease from wearing Inuit boots. Got a little blister, got some sort of infection, and it stopped the whole expedition. He attempted it again in 2006, got onto the ice, solo by the way, this is all solo, and managed about 19 days on the ice, all covered by these people. Just for instance, ITV or ITN, sorry, they covered him for 22 minutes of airtime, and then it went on around the world, NBC, Sky News, it just went everywhere. And this time around, same people plus more. You know, we've got social media, we've got a documentary film crew that follows us through training and through the expedition itself. Our reach is growing all the time now, and it's going to keep building on the way up to the expedition, so all the rest of this year. And then when we come back, it doesn't stop, it carries on. We go to the schools, go to universities, because this covers 5 key areas of the curriculum, what we're doing, so they're really interested in hearing our story, and it turns into a film or book, and it just gets pushed out, and our message just keeps getting wider and wider, because we need to push it as far as we can. So that's kind of it on the media side. Let's talk a little bit about Jim, actually, because this is his baby. He's been, let me have a quick drink. He's been polar exploring for about 35 years now, and he'll quite happily say he's got all his fingers and toes, which I'm happy to see, and he's been training people since 2001 in his company called Ice Warrior, people like you and me, absolutely ordinary people, to do extraordinary things. He's trained over 350 people to do what I'm doing. He's done 7 major expeditions in that time, and there's no cardboard cutout Ice Warrior. Literally, all of us in this room could do it. It's an incredible system he's got of training people. The only thing he asks at the start is just a mentality. So I'll quickly run through a little bit of training. So the first post, if you like, of Ice Warrior training is a selection weekend. And it's just a weekend. We'll go somewhere hilly, somewhere like the Peak District, Dartmoor, and get you really cold, get you really tired, get you really hungry, get you really thirsty, and do simple tasks. Because a simple task to do now, maybe tie some knots or something like that, very trivial, very easy. But when you're all those things, you're tired, you're wet, you're hungry, and it becomes very difficult. And if you freak out now in England under those sort of slightly tense conditions, when you go out there it's magnified 10 times. So we just try to make sure at the start that you've got that sort of mentality, and the rest of it can be taught. Literally, the rest of it is taught. You can tell he wrote some of this because it starts off with explorer, ordinary chap. He's generally the most humble person I've ever met. He's done so many great things in his life. He's been a fireman, military, he's worked for the BBC, works alongside Fines and Attenborough, all these great people. And he's just like, oh, I'm just an ordinary chap. Well, he's really not an ordinary chap. To talk to, if he was here right now, you'd never know he was a world-famous explorer, but he's just the most humble guy I've ever met. And that portrays to us, because there's no room for ego in Ice Warrior. Ego on the ice will get you killed. So again, that's something that if you've got a bit of that, that will just get cut out from the start. And it gets cut out because you kind of feed it off him. You know, he's just very infectious, if you like. Some of the stuff you probably may have seen: Frozen Planet, Human Planet, Captain America, Last Explorers, Natural World. He's the guy you go to if you're a producer or got a program and you want to go somewhere really cold and inhospitable. You'd give him a call and he'd take your team out there safe and bring you back safe. He's that guy. So I'm fully what's the word? So I absolutely trust him fully. You know, all fingers and toes. What part of the training is firearms? It's quite a small part of the training. You just got to be able to pick up and use it. He's been doing it 35 years, never had to shoot a bear. Never had to shoot a bear. He will train you to a point where you can understand the bear's behaviours, whether he's in predatory mode, inquisitive mode, and basically you scare them off. Shooting them is the very, very last thing, and that sits well with me because there's probably a lot of people out there that may shoot first and not, you know, try and scare them off before, and he's just not like that. It's all about the science, it's all about the bears, and that's it for him. The media part is great for telling the story, and it tells the story well, but it's all about the science for him. Like I say, completely humble, passionate about the environment, education. That's just him. He just loves to, his whole life is just educating the people about what's going on out there and trying to do something about it. So really humble guy. We'll be watching these when we're out there. There he is, the polar bear. There are something like 26 communities of polar bears, and we've only studied a fraction of them. So hopefully we'll come across some communities and gather as much data as we can on them. But when we go, it has to actually be the boys walking around hungry and tired, because the girls are really clever. They'll be asleep with their cubs. They don't hibernate. They'll be asleep with their cubs for the winter, and the boys will just keep walking around tired and hungry. So when we do come across bear, he will be tired and hungry, so we have to deal with that appropriately. But hopefully we can come across some new communities out there. This is a multi-layered sponsorship opportunity. It's basically saying, like I said to you earlier, it's in the newspapers, magazines, TV, radio, social media. We're on billboards. I don't know if you've heard of Ocean Outdoors. They got some of the biggest TVs in Europe. They had one outside Canary Wharf. That was the biggest TV screen in Europe. We used it for campaigning for gathering new team members. So these sort of people are happy to help us push our message out, and any of our sponsors too. So this is basically just talking about what I've talked about. Lots of different talks as well. We do a thing called Icons Interviewed. In the past, we've had icons of David Attenborough, Fines, Felicity Aston, all these big names in the environmental, scientific, explorer community. Jim will bring onto a stage in a nice prestigious event, black tile, you know, it's a very, very nice place to be, and interview them, really get to know who they are, what they are as a person, and as you can imagine, it draws a huge crowd. So again, for any sponsors involved, big or small, they can come along to those events. They're really great. You really get to have that almost that one-on-one time with these icons. You know, I'm very privileged to be here, and I'm very humble that I get to do that. Here's some of the options that I can offer you guys as business owners. We've got trips up to Svalbard, trips up to training grounds in Resolute Bay, photograph opportunities. The list is endless. You could be, we talked about earlier, the fourth leg, that they have to get airlifted out at some point. Well, they're going to get airlifted out from that place no one's ever been before. Well, for the right company, you could be on one of those seats on that plane. Do you know what I mean? It goes from like that end or partnership end to this end where flags, all these have been to the Arctic with me, of companies. I could take pictures of that out on the ice, and then you guys would have full photographic rights to use in your PR campaigns and so on and so forth. Badges, I did have one. There you go. Badges, things like that. We'll talk about this on the next slide. My coat here, I wear two coats, one for skiing in, one for down gear, and these can be not covered in patches but strategically placed patches, because this whole thing is documented. Wherever I go as a TV camera, it's constant brand awareness basically, and this gets pushed out to all the media channels that I was talking about earlier. On the right there we've got the Kajak, which we talked about earlier, which is the pulk we drag behind us. Again, can be used as a PR. The tent itself is a huge 8-man geodesic tent. Like it fills this room. It's huge. It's a fantastic, great thing. Again, all branding opportunities. Don't just take my word for it though. Here's some of the guys that follow us. You've got Fines, Bonington, Michael Palin. There's many others. I won't read them all, but I'll probably just read Bonington's. We all think that the world has been discovered and there are few areas that mankind has not reached. This is not so, and projects like Jim McNeil's Ice Warrior project serve to explore these extremes and push back the boundaries of our knowledge as well as the limits of those who take part. As an expeditioner myself, I am delighted to encourage and support such worthwhile endeavour undertaken not by experts but by trained amateurs under the careful leadership of Jim. I wish them the very best of luck. I am an amateur, although I've been here 4 years. People coming through that are new, we're all amateurs, and Jim trains us to a point where we can slip into a team and be a competent team member. Any of the roles, even a leadership role, he trains us to that stage, and I'm very humbled to be part of it. And that's me basically. Ways you can get hold of me, I'm all over the internet. I'm in newspapers. I'm just everywhere. So if you want to be a part of it, there's so many ways that you can be a part of it, and the brand awareness for anyone and the kudos of being involved is phenomenal. So happy to take any questions if you've got any. If not, then take a screenshot of that and you can get hold of me later on.
So why ice and why not like swimming in lakes somewhere? What made you think this?
What made me think this? I stumbled across it actually. Long story cut short. In a past life I was a part-time fireman. Jim, again like I told you earlier, was in the fire brigade, and we just crossed paths on a shift one night, and he was over there. I didn't know who he was. He was talking about this expedition. I was earwigging, thinking wow, how do I get involved in this? 10 minutes later he stopped the conversation. I just had to butt in and was like, how on earth do I get involved in this? And like a dog chasing the ball ever since, I've just been fanatical about it. It wasn't, I didn't get any special treatment. I still had to go through the selection weekend and all the other training, the basic training, the basic polar training, the advanced polar training, all the different stages. But that was kind of my way in, really. I just overheard a conversation, see an opportunity and went for it, really. I guess when I started, it was a bit egotistical. It was, wow, I'm doing something that's freaking awesome, this is great. But now my whole life changed because of it. I started off a bit of a laddish type behaviour, a bit of a sheep, just following the crowd, driving like nice 4x4 trucks and cars and things. That was me. Now, not so much, well, definitely not laddish behaviour. Trying to stand out wherever I can. Just mostly ride my bicycle, things like that. I've changed the way I eat. I'm not trying to convert you guys, not many people know this, but I just eat plant now, have done for the past few years. I'm just constantly trying to find ways that I can do my bit. I'm not saying I'm going to change the world by myself, but I can definitely do my bit, and if I can influence someone else to do the same, then that's kind of what I'm about now. So yeah, just my life's changed massively because of this, for the good. At the start it was about me doing something really cool, smooth, and now it's not about me at all. You may want to sponsor me, but you're sponsoring this. You're not sponsoring. I've got rid of that mentality. It's about me. It's about this now, and that's helped me massively, because it's not about me. It's about us as a collective of species, but it's about the core as Ice Warrior. So that's helped me a lot massively.
So how much sponsorship do you need to raise to get?
So personal sponsorship is £20,000. I'm about halfway there. Like I say, there's various ways that people can get involved. The trip itself costs like millions, but Jim takes care of that, the commercial sponsorship side of things. There's some really bespoke, even from a lower level, but like the top level stuff for big organisations. There's all sorts of partner schemes that they can get involved with.
So that's just to do one leg?
For me, to do one leg, yep.
So if you want to
do more, then I've got to raise more, yeah, absolutely. So if you've got deep pockets, guys, that'd be great. That's my goal. I'll absolutely do that. It's not a problem. And then I'll keep raising, keep adding to the pot, and I'd do all four. I really would. I feel confident enough to do all four. Physically trained to do all four. Mentally trained to do all four. Absolutely. So Jim's not decided what legs we're on yet. It's all based on your skill set, but it's no secret. My favourite is leg one. So if he's hearing this, Jim, leg one. But he decides ultimately. He's the guy in charge. So I'm happy to slot in anywhere. Really, I am really happy to slot in anywhere. But leg one is my favourite.
Would you be held if you got leg one?
Yep.
You'd be held on reserve to take over in case something happened to one of the other legs?
Absolutely, yeah. Like I said to you earlier, where I'm in property now, personally, it's a passive income for me. There's a lot of work at the start to set it up, and there still is for new projects, but the stuff I've got already, it's a passive income. So I've done that on purpose because this is a huge passion of mine. When I started it, I was building houses. Now I'm buying them, and I've done it on purpose because, like you say, I can be a reserve now. I'm ready to go. Now my kit is at home in my loft, in my what's it called, Ripsieg, I don't know, bag, Autolead bag, ready to go. I can pick it up and go on the plane now. I'm there. So, to answer your question, yeah, I'm ready to do all the legs on reserve. So.
Will you be using kites?
Kites, not at the moment, no. I know guys have done that, and it's can be a really good way if you've got the right winds to get across, but at the moment, no. Any others?
You'll have ice core equipment?
Yeah. So coring stuff, drones as well. We've got some really fantastic, innovative tech that we get to play with, and the drones are run by either fuel cells or hydrogen, because a normal battery like your phone, you get it out and do like a quick selfie, and within, 10-15 seconds that will stop working, and it doesn't work anymore until you warmed it up. Like your phone, you can take it out there for pictures, but you've got anything electrical you have tucked in your jacket here. Your camera will go in here, because as soon as you get it out cold, it just dies. And the same for drones. A normal drone out there, it goes up and it's just gone, it's dead. But the fuel cells and the hydrogen, they can start there for hours. It's a really good tech. All stuff that's been tested in the Antarctic, which is colder. So yeah, we're fully confident that in the Arctic that'll be absolutely fine. So yeah, core samples, tape measures, like really basic stuff. I'm really no scientist, just really basic stuff. But like I say, NASA send over their satellites, they can see what's going on like from above. They've got a pretty good idea, but they just don't know what's going on the floor. It's like really basic stuff, but we're the guys that have got to go up there and get it. So, between the basic samples and the satellites, they can work out what's going on there. I mean, they've got some sort of idea, the fact that all the cars and the crap and stuff comes out from, say, the bottom of the earth, goes to the top and lands on top of the ice. Well, before then the ice is white, sunlight hits it and it reflects it, fine. But now all this black and crap and stuff like going on the ice, sitting on the ice, the sunlight hits it and soaks it up. So now it's soaking up the sunlight, and that's why it's getting warmer. And then you've got the plastic in there and all the other stuff, so lots of issues up there. Bit of a long-winded answer, I know, but yes, core stuff, we've got core stuff, yeah.
Degree in geography.
Okay.
So
So you said you have to do it that time of year because it's the coldest, is that
Yeah.
because it's just firm to walk on?
It gives us the best chance, yeah, because even at the coldest time after 80 days, literally that last leg, they could be swimming. Some of it is
Right.
it's going to be thawing out, so it just gives us the best possible opportunity to get from the start to the end.
Why does it have to be done as such a big coordinated effort? Like, why can't you do leg 4 independent of the other legs, for example?
Well, there may be a point where we could be doing leg 1, leg 2, and may not get to leg 4, so there could be an opportunity where we may have to skip a bit, but we want to spend as much time as we can traversing on foot, because we can do more science that way. Because then we could take core sample all along the route rather than just say at the start and at the end there's nothing in between. We want to be on the ice as long as we can to get the best.
Is it important that it's all taken at the same time as well?
Well, it's recorded in real time, and because we've got at Resolute Bay, the media will be there, and our scientists will be there as well. So we can talk to Resolute Bay, we can talk to them, and as much info as we can get transponded to them. So it's almost same time. It's in real time, so they can start working on it straight away. If that answers your question. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed that. Thanks for the questions. Thanks, mate.
It's fantastic.
No worries.
What a talk. That was certainly the most
Just gotta turn this
extreme
off.
talk we've had so far in the event.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much, Curtis. It's absolutely brilliant coming along and doing that, and good luck